Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Or this. Because this is ZLowpass2. Surprise! I guess it's like an early Christmas present or something. So here's the deal. A while back, I did the Z series of plugins, and I purchased a EMU sampler because the idea was people wanted the sound of the filters in that sampler. And they're biquad filters, but they're a little bit complicated. There's stuff going on with them. Now, I don't have the code, and I'm not saying that I did the exact Z plane filter code or anything like that. What I did was I took also a biquad with some similar characteristics like it's distorting inside the biquad, and I tried to make it sound as much like the sampler as I could. And you know what happened? People had some issues with it. And this is because there was some zipper noise on the controls. And so I've been doing a bunch of other plugins, other things like the recent TPDF stuff that I've been doing, TPDF wide. Pretty much nobody saw Paul wide. Paul is a upgrade to TPDF and lends itself even better to the sort of wide effect that those plugins created. And I've been working on plugins called the Y series of plugins. And those are basically about zeroing in on how to best do this interpolation stuff to smooth out the effect of control movements and things. And that actually gets it to be closer to what the Z-plane filters in the EMU actually do. And then I started doing ZLowpass2 and struggled mightily with coming up with the right kind of biquad filter and placed the distortion factor in a slightly different place and went, oh, okay, I think this might be more close to what they actually were doing in the hardware. Except for it's still kind of Airwindows-sized because it's still running on a long double bus and a variety of other things like that. And what we've got is so as you can see, we've got a nice little low pass filter. My voice is also going through it at the moment. And it is ZLowpass, but everything's smoothed. Including the poles control. So here's the deal. If you're using this, it's because you want a dirty filter, one that like comes off of a hardware sampler, because this is modeling the sound of the analog circuits on the back end of the sampler. If you need it to be CPU efficient and you can get away with not moving the controls, or if you're moving the controls more subtly, you should try maybe the original ZLowpass. I feel like this one has a slight edge in tone, but because of the things that I've done with it, it's also eating a bunch more CPU because there's just a lot more going on in there. But this is what you're going to want if you have the computer to be able to run it. And again, remember, if we're doing like Mac plugins on Ableton Live, which is not M1 compatible, and you're using the signed plugins which I supply, all of my plugins come as M1 Mac compatible. But if you're running them in a DAW that is not yet M1 native, then there can be problems with that. But we're hoping that everybody kind of gets up to speed. This is not the first time that me, just little me, the indie out there, has gone through and updated everything that I do all the way into the back catalog to cover a new technological advancement. The first time was when I had to get everything to go 64-bit. And I made all of my stuff 64-bit. And after that, a Apple person actually called me up and was like, "Can we help you in making your stuff 64-bit?" And I was like, "Thank you. We're good." Likewise with the M1 native. So this is ZLowpass2. And this is the one you're going to want if you're moving the controls, doing a lot of interesting automation, doing stuff like that. It's going to eat a bunch more CPU than ZLowpass, but that's the price that we pay for getting it that realistic and that smooth. And this is not the first Z series plugin that I'm going to be doing. But I will say this, I've got a backlog. I'm going to be working through some of the other plugins. Like I've mentioned, there's a monitoring too. It uses dark. You're hearing it now. There is a update on pressure. And that's what I'm using for output bus for some of the stuff that I do. And it's not out yet. There is a update on ultrasonic that is not ultrasonic light and ultrasonic medium. Because it turns out I put out those because I thought that it would be giving people a more low impact filtering answer. And it turns out the staggering of the Q factors, the staggering of the resonances in the 5 parts of ultrasonic were what let it deliver a really clean, right up to its filter frequency response. And ultrasonic light and ultrasonic medium did not, because if you stack those up, they start to fade off more. I still think they're valid, but there is a new ultrasonic called Ultrason X, and that has to be used. This is one of those ones where it's like console. You can get amazing results, but you're going to have to work for it. So Ultrason X is 5 different biquads, just like the ultrasonic plugin, but they're in individual pieces. So you must put 5 of those in your signal chain for every track and set them so that exactly one of the instances, you get a setting of like A through A, B, C, D, A through E, and you're going to want to have every track of yours run through 5 instances of this biquad filter plugin in order. Like A first, if you want to have any distortion factors in there be kind of softer and mellower, but still have the extension. And then the B version of it, and then C and D. There's a switch on it, so you don't have to juggle the plugins around. But that is also coming out. That's in the backlog. I need to post it. So this Monday, we're not actually programming a plugin. Instead, I'll get online, I'll answer questions. But for now, ZLowpass2 is your new Z-filter style plugin. And the reason I'm putting it out and not jumping immediately into more Z plugins is I want to hear if there's anything more wrong with this one that I need to look after, because the idea is this should hold you. I'm hoping this is going to be good enough to go forwards with. And so we're going to fill in some of the gaps and do some of the plugins that are in the backlog that people would like to get a hold of. And I'm only putting a plugin out once a week. I know, lazy, right? And once I've done through some of those, I can look back at ZLowpass2 and find out whether people are happy with where that's at. And if they are, we'll start doing the other forms of the Z plugins in 2 versions that are smoothed and coefficient interpolated, all that kind of stuff. Looks like I got my work cut out for me. But I hope you enjoy ZLowpass2. I think it's going to work really well for people. I mean, the first ZLowpass was already pretty good. It builds on the success I've had with like MaCD and MaCQ and so on. This one eats a lot more CPU, but I think you'll find that it's worth it. I hope you like it. I am continuing to do all of this because of Patreon, so if my Patreon evaporates between now and the time No, don't worry about that. I'm fine. It's doing fine. That's why I'm still doing this stuff, and I hope you enjoy ZLowpass2, which is the fruit of me being able to work on these kinds of things for years, because that is a useful thing. I might take side detours into dithers, because I will always take side detours into dithers, but I eventually get to everything that's interesting and the things that people ask. This is one of the things that people asked, and I hope you like it. And thank you. Bye-bye.